And I've tried to describe some of like the kind of weird stuff, the sort of supernatural kind of occurrences that happen with the Mandela Effect before. Things you don't really hear many people talk about. I mean, you got people like Brian Staveley, the spelling of the town he lived in changed. Like the town he lived in changed names, and it's like, oh, it's always been a. I mean, that's what I don't get. What's the one of the strangest things about this crap is that, I mean, this stuff is so huge and so intense, and yet so many people pretend like it's not even happening, and it just gets dismissed offhand, like, and you get treated like you're nuts or something for even noticing shit, you know. And it's so, but it's so fucking intense and so huge, but it's treated as though it's nothing. I mean, we got passages in the freaking Bible changing, physical, landmarks, massive like historical changes, you know, just things that are just freaking huge. And I mean, you wake up in this world and you're just like, oh look, the sun is white when it used to be yellow, and the fucking moon comes out, and there's way more, you know, full moons than there used to be. And there's all kinds of weird, crazy crap happening, and some movie that you've watched hundreds of times, and you could probably recite it from memory or something because you've seen this movie so many times. And now there's different scenes that you've never seen before, and different lines, and the ending's different or something. There's one thing after another that changes. And people don't even fucking notice. People don't even notice the shit. It's insane, and it affects you. When you're one of the people that's like targeted by this shit, it affects you massively. I mean, there's all these little things, but then there's other things that personally affect you and kind of screw your life over, basically. Like I was talking about, I was going to try and buy a mobile home. It took me forever to even get a hold of anyone to, find out about mobile homes for sale. There were two or three there for sale, and I get back there, and now none of them are for sale. And the ones that I remember having driven past like half a dozen times to look at them are like they look like completely different places. The colors are different. They don't even look like the same trailers that I looked at before. And now they're not even for sale now anymore when they were. That's the kind of shit. Like the motel, I remember I've driven past that thing dozens and dozens. I mean, honestly, probably hundreds now that I think of it of times. I looked over at it a whole bunch of times before I finally stopped off there, and I could draw you a fucking. I did draw a picture one time of what I remembered it looking like. I drew a picture of it. I remember there had to have been 30, 40, 50 rooms or more. Now there's four. Like, you try week after week, month after month, trying to get into this other motel, and I can't get into it. Oh, there's never a room available, and the price keeps going up and up and up. It's ridiculous. The way in which I'm getting screwed over, basically. And it's just, I mean, imagine, and you can't describe this shit to anyone, and nobody even fucking listens to it. It's like, oh, they'll just go on with life like everything's normal and pretend like everything's fine. And it treats you like you're nuts or something if you remember anything different. And yeah, nobody has any concern. Nobody gives a shit because it doesn't affect them or whatever. Other people, they have everything coming together perfectly for them in their life or whatever. But and they'll be, oh, that's too bad, or they're just, oh, you're just imagining things. Oh, just go get a job. Everything, it's like, fuck you. You have no idea. No idea. Oh, fuck, man. I don't even know how, because it's so blatantly obvious and so out in the open, and yet people just act like nothing's happening. It's And sometimes when when you're dealing with the Mandela effect, I don't know if other people feel this way, but I start to wonder. It almost feels like it's like I'm the only real fucking living human being, and I'm just surrounded by fucking I don't know, actors or you know NPC robots in a video game or something. So sometimes it feels like it. Now it sounds crazy or whatever, but it's just things are so weird, man. The kind of stuff that goes on with the Mandela effect and things like that. That should be like headline fucking news. Every single news station, every newspaper, every single one of these things should be talking about that. Like, and there should be huge investigations. They should have every physicist, every scientist, every researcher on the face of the earth should be like focused on this as the number one fucking priority, basically, trying to figure out what the hell is going on. But people don't even care. And we're dealing with like straight apocalyptic kind of shit, and people don't even seem to care about that. It doesn't seem real. I mean, it's like this basically. If I had to try to describe it to somebody who doesn't notice this shit, it would be like, imagine like your house, you've lived in this house, and the paint on your house is blue, and you drive a red Camaro or something, right? And I don't know, you've got, and okay, you wake up in the morning and you go out to, and as you're in your house, you're noticing, hey, something seems a little off. Your clock on the wall has 13 hours on it instead of 12. Your you reach for a can of Coke and it's spelled Koke, and you're thinking, oh, this must be some kind of knockoff or something. Where'd you get this? I've never seen this one before. You could go to get a bowl of cereal, and your cereal name is spelled different than it was spelled before, and you're like, oh, that's weird. They must have changed the name, some kind of gimmick. You go outside, ready to go get in your car, and you're going, where the hell's my car? And you see this blue car sitting there, right? And no other car around it, sitting in your driveway. You're thinking, what the hell happened to my car? We're like, what? It's blue, and everybody insists that you always driven this blue car, right? You look back at your house and it's white or brown or something, right? And there's some part of you that almost remembers like it was that way, but then it was blue. It's like, something's wrong. You're thinking, what, did somebody sneak up and repaint my house or something? But everybody insists that your memory is just faulty, and it's just wrong. You look up in the sky, you see the sun, and it's I don't know, purple or something. It's a fucking different color than you've ever seen in your entire life, and nobody seems to care. Nobody seems to care, and they treat you like you're crazy if you notice it or mention anything about it. The grass in your fucking lawn is red instead of green. You got a fucking like huge tree in your backyard that you've never seen before, and you've lived there for 20 years. I don't know, you pull up to the stoplights, and the stoplights are upside down, reverse of what they used to be. You drive down a street you've driven past your whole life thousands and thousands of times, and you see houses that you've never seen before. You see businesses and factories alongside the road that you've never seen before, that look like they've been there for years. You go to work or something, to your job that you've worked at, and this could be a variety of things. You show up and they act like they've never heard of you, or you show up and you're headed to your office or something, but it's it's not there, and you're like, what the hell's going on? Where's my office to take you some different place? You've got a completely different job title. You work it out of a different office, right? You show up there and you find there's pictures on your desk of people you've never seen before. You're like, who the hell is this? They say, oh, that's your, don't you know, that's your ex-wife. Like, what? I've never been married. You know, that's the kind of shit that's what it's like, right? You get home, you turn on the TV or something. There's some movie that you've seen thousands of times, or a TV show that you've binged over and over, and you've seen it a bunch of times. Like, oh, this is a good episode, and then something completely different happens in the episode or in the movie that you've never seen before, even though you've seen this thing like thousands of times. It's different now. There's a different actor, or some different scene that happens that you've never seen before. Mm-hmm. Alternate ending or something, right? I mean, that's what it's like. It's like the I don't know. I like to watch Supernatural, for instance. You ever see the episode of Supernatural where that Balthazar or whatever it is went back in time and like stopped the Titanic from wrecking? And so in that episode, like Ellen and Joe are alive, and like millions more people on Earth, and they're driving a different car, you know, and they don't even know it even notices basically. It's kind of like that, but it's like more intense than that because there's all kinds of stuff also in personal life. There's all these synchronicities, all these strange events happening, taking place around you that make no fucking sense. That's what makes me think that like it seems like a video game almost because you'll see like I don't know like I don't know a month ago or something when I was drove to the park or something or a couple months or whatever it was when I was coming back from neighboring town. I stopped by the park, and as I was driving back, well, I was having all kinds of weird stuff. Like first, it was the motel and the mobile homes that disappeared or had changed and weren't for sale anymore. And I get back, and of course, as I'm listening to the radio, there's songs coming on that seem to almost be speaking to me, like it's directly has something to do with me. You go to hike on a hiking trail you've hiked thousands of times, and the trails are different. They don't go to the same places. The direction the river used to bend in is different. uh, so the trails go further. They're completely different than what you remember, even though you've hiked them for fucking 20 years and you know exactly where everything was, but now it's different. I remember I was sitting in the car. I was looking at this tree that had kind of fallen over at the park, and it was kind of it was still there. It was still alive, but it just had blown over. And I was looking at this little crook on a tree and thinking, hey, yeah, it'd be cool just to go climb up there and sit on that. And right as I thought that, some kid comes running and climbs up and sits right where I was thinking of sitting. And then I walk down to sit by the river, and this mom comes with her kid, and she's like, "Oh, you're gonna throw rocks?" And he was just throwing rocks randomly. It seemed like he didn't know what he was doing. And I had this thought, "Oh, has nobody ever taught this kid how to skip rock or something?" And then right as I exactly as I thought that, the mom says, "Here, I'll show you how to skip a rock." Right? And as I'm leaving the park, I drive back into town to get back to the motel room. I have like several cars, but there's like a couple different models of car and a pickup truck kind of driving in a row past me. And all three of their engines sound like exactly the same, identical, but sound like some kind of race car engine, which is weird as shit because I mean, for one car to have an engine that sounds like that is strange enough, but for two cars and a pickup truck that all sound identical and sound like a race car or something, it just It's like there's some sort of audio file superimposed to just completely make a fake sound. And you'll have other things that happen. Like I go out to go for a drive, and one day like I mentioned, government vehicles. I'm talking like construction vehicles, cop cars, garbage trucks, all that kind of stuff. You'll see the change, from one day to the next. They'll have different color lights, different paint jobs, different model cars, different sounding sirens, etc., etc. And the way that they drive, it's strange. I mean, how do I describe it? Like, I'll hear, say, a siren going past where I'm staying, right? And I'll look out, and the siren will just stop. It's like it's just the siren comes on just long enough for them to pass right by where I am, and then it turns off, and they're just driving normally. Like the siren was just meant to get my attention or spook me or something. I don't know. You know, it's like they're not really going anywhere. Like there's no emergency that they're actually going to. They just flip the siren on for the hell of it, kind of thing. I don't know. And then the siren will be a different siren from one day to another. It will be a different sounding siren. The lights will be different. Different lights, different uniforms, different paint job, different vehicles. When the garbage truck shows up to get the garbage, it'll be a different garbage truck one day from all the garbage trucks you remember seeing. Sometimes the garbage cans will change. I noticed that like years ago that some days it'd have the regular like green garbage can that I remember that you roll out to the road. And other times it would be a different, like a gray can or something that's a little smaller, shaped differently. Just all kinds of stuff is different. I mean, I don't live at the same place I did before. I kind of wish I did now. I wanted to get out of there, but I would much rather have that. At least then I'd have a home and not be living in a fucking motel forever. I wish I could go back and change it so they never sold the place. I just felt like I had to get out of there because I was dealing with constant like people showing up I didn't want there, and this my sister's boyfriend was an asshole, and he was over there all the time now. Just kind of seemed like a demon possessed or something, basically. Just there to torment me, basically. And it gets old, man. Just dealing with so much bullshit. I don't know, man. But like, I mean, the house there, like, as a for instance, there were things that would change there. Like when we moved in there, I remember years ago, man, there was a street light. There was a power pole with a street light on it, right at the corner of our driveway, and we had a street light right there. But by the time we moved out, I'd noticed like that power pole was gone, the street light was gone, like it had never been there. You know, it was just that's why it was like dark when you'd pull out into the road, because that street light that was there originally when we moved in was not there, as though it had never been there. And then I mentioned the tree that was, I think technically it was our land, but they had never protested, basically, as these neighbors set up a fence, and they put the fence kind of probably about 8 or 10 feet onto our land, basically, that they just took, and they didn't ever protest or bitch about it. So they ended up with one of our plum trees and this other big tree that I guess should have been in our yard. But anyways, so this big tree, I told one day I hear this loud crash and this tree comes crashing down. Biggest tree we had, technically our backyard, but I guess we'll call it the neighbor's yard. And this thing crashes to the ground. I mean, it shakes the earth. It's a loud crash. You can feel the house shake, everything. And I look out the window and I'm going, oh, that tree's gone. And then for like several days afterwards, you had the neighbors were coming over with chainsaws. I heard them cutting it up with chainsaws. I heard them stacking logs onto trailers. I watched them drive past over and over again with truckloads and trailer loads of logs. And I noticed that I had like an extra hour and a half to 2 hours of extra sunlight that was getting on my back window and the yard. The garden was getting more light. Everything, it was an improvement. But then one day I look out and there the tree is. It's like it never happened. You know. And you see all kinds of other weird shit like that. Like you see the other things with trees, with people's houses, with fences. Like I probably mentioned this shit before, but like I don't know. So you look across the street, right, at your neighbor's house, and he's got this. They've got this porch light that comes on at night. So he's had one light bulb, and then some other day you look out and it's a fixture that's got 4 light bulbs instead of one. Then another day it's got 2 light bulbs. Another day it's got 6. And then sometimes it goes back and it's back to the one. So it's like the different, or you look out and your neighbor's house is a different color. It's looks like it's been that way for years, or their vehicle is a different color. You drive down a road you've driven past them, a million times, and you'll see different house in place of, like there'll be this nice big house that was been there for years, and then you drive past and you'll see like construction happening. It's like they're building the house that had already been there for 20 or 30 years is just being built now. All of a sudden, you see a fucking, you'll drive past some place that's had a chain link fence there so long that's like rusty and it's been there for years. You walk past or drive past the same place and it's got some old wood fence that looks like it's falling apart where there used to be this chain link fence, or you'll see a wood fence that was had just been built recently, and you'll drive past and it looks like it's fallen apart, like it's been there for 40 years or something. Or you'll see one day there's an old wood fence and then there's a chain link fence, but the chain link fence looks old as hell, like it's been there for many years. Things like that. Or you'll see like a little baby tree in place of that looks like the same type of tree and the same shape as the tree that you remember being hundreds of feet tall that was in its place. Shit like that. Or another guy talk about I forget what his channel name was, but he talked about how this thing with golf balls. He said he at the yard at his house that he'd buy these big bags of golf balls, and he would just shoot golf balls out into his yard. And he had this like thing that would vacuum up the golf balls, and he went out to go vacuum up the golf balls and he couldn't find any. It's like he thought somebody stole his golf balls or something, right? But then years later he went out looking around, and there had been like a storm. It rained a lot, and he started to see these little like tops of the golf balls sticking up out of the ground. And it's like the golf balls had been buried under a couple inches of new soil buildup on them, which would have taken years for that to happen. But somehow all his golf balls were buried. It's shit like that, man. Sounds crazy. But it is what it is, man. I mean, and then movies changing, things like Back to the Future. I can't tell you how many times Back to the Future has had a bunch of things change. And there was like some residue in Back to the Future where you'd see the Volkswagen van has the old Volkswagen logo, was in it. But you'll see things like the clock tower clock will change, and the guitar that Marty McFly is playing becomes a different guitar, stuff like that. And it's just tons and tons of shit that just changes in impossible ways. I'm so sick of it, man. Because a lot of the time it just feels like I'm getting screwed over. Like it's got to be, You ever see that show, The Bad or no, what The Good Place? That's right. It's called The Good Place, but it really turns out to be The Bad Place. Like this is the bad place. Uh, it's like that. It's shit that is as crazy as the stuff in that show. Where like basically, it's basically like that. It's like I don't know if you've seen that show. You probably remember like when she gets there. It's like, oh, this is the good place, and then like she starts ranting about I don't know, insulting people, ranting about shrimp and giraffes and stuff like that. And then the next day, there's like giraffes running around and giant shrimp flying through the sky and all this kind of weird shit. It's like almost to like that level of fucking batshit crazy kind of stuff. Like, take the Bible for instance, like the Lord's Prayer in King James changed. I mean, and there's like a passage in there about armies of aliens now. Now, are you trying to tell me you expect me to believe that all the UFO nuts there are out there that are obsessed with UFOs and aliens and shit like that not a single one of those people, when they're trying to talk about aliens, even though you'll use passages that were in the Bible talking about, to try to say, oh, that's describing a flying saucer or whatever. Are you telling me that not one of these people, not one of these UFO nuts that's been going on and on about UFOs for fucking 20, 30 goddamn years, not one of those people once brings up a passage in the Bible that says, take flight the armies of aliens? Right? No, why would they ever mention the passage of the Bible about taking flight the army of aliens, right? No. Of course they would fucking mention that, right? But they don't. So what the hell? Why is it in there? How come millions of people remember seeing a movie that apparently never existed? How come a bunch of young people, like younger people like me, remember the missing persons case of the Lindbergh baby when it happened like 100 years before we were born or more? Whatever, close to it. It's ridiculous. When they found the kid, they found the killer, they arrested the guy, but for us, it was an unsolved mystery that was like a big deal. And then you hear supposedly the episode of Lassie where Timmy falls down the well never existed. But the guy who played the guy who played Timmy in the show Lassie as a kid, writes a freaking autobiography, and it's named Timmy Fell Down the Well. You say that Darth Vader never said, Luke, I am your father, but James Earl Jones comes out and fucking says that that's what he remembered saying. you know everybody remembers, Forrest Gump saying, Mama always said life is like a box of chocolates. And then you find a scene from when they were making the movie, from like the behind the scenes shit, where he does say it that way. But it's not that way in the movie now. And then, it's like it's all just being done just to slap us in the face, basically, to show us some weird shit going down. I mean, what are the odds that the fucking Simpsons would be predicting the future over and over? Simpsons predict the Higgs boson particle. Simpsons predict Trump's election 20 years before he's elected. Simpsons, yeah, the Higgs boson particle equation, for fuck's sake, was on there years before it was discovered, allegedly, right? You got goddamn magazines and video games and album covers and movies and TV shows fucking predicting 9/11 more than, 20, 30 years before it happened. It's just on and on. It doesn't make fucking sense. There's some kind of serious fuckery going on. And it's fucking with my life personally. But nobody gives a damn. And it's so fucking weird too, because it's like, I couldn't imagine, like, when I was growing up, man, there was barely such a thing in existence as homeless people. Like, homelessness was something that only existed practically in, like, Los Angeles and shit, and maybe Vegas, big fucking huge towns where things were just so much more ridiculously expensive than everywhere else. People used to rent houses, or, even in big cities, people would rent apartments for $25 or $50 a month or something. And now it's just got so fucking ridiculous. There's people living on the street everywhere, people living in their cars. And nobody seems to give a shit. And to the only extent that they ever do give a shit is just to be cruel and to be nasty and to, we got to get these people out of our, they just don't want to look at them. They don't want to see the mess that doesn't get cleaned up. Talk about, there's people shitting in the streets. Well, maybe you'd be fucking shitting in the street too if you didn't have a fucking toilet that you were allowed to use. Maybe you'd leave piles of garbage on the ground somewhere if you didn't have a fucking garbage can to throw your trash in. There's like a consolidation of like ownership of absolutely everything, just stealing literally everything from basically everyone. And people don't even give a shit. People don't care. People are treated like lower than pieces of fucking garbage, or pieces of shit. They're treated like trash. Fucking robbed blind, screwed over. While your average person just goes about their daily lives and doesn't give a flying fuck. And a rolling donut, what the hell happens? They don't care. Everywhere you go now, it's fuck you, pay me, fuck you, pay me, fuck you, pay me, fuck you, pay me for everything. Don't want to starve to death, want some food, fuck you, pay me. Want to have a roof over your head, fuck you, pay me. Right? Want any kind of fucking human interaction, fuck you, pay me. Everything. It's just, fuck this place, man. So it's like, why the fuck wouldn't I drink? Because at least when I drink, sometimes I have some fun, I suddenly have all this great taste in music and literature and art and poetry and fucking philosophy and everything. People that don't even fucking act like I exist when I'm fucking sober suddenly talk to me and are nicer to me and shit when I'm shit faced. Can actually interact with people. And of course, afterwards, I just end up feeling sick and feeling stupid. Like, oh, you shouldn't have done that. People are like, yeah, you shouldn't drink. Stay away from alcohol. I mean, it certainly doesn't help anything, but neither does getting up off my ass and going to fucking try and bust my ass and do shit. Force myself to get out of bed to go fucking hustle around trying to find a way to get my shit straightened out. It just leads to nothing because anything I try to do, there will be some kind of supernatural fucking shit that comes along to fuck me over. That's what the fuck happens, man. Damn it. I guess I'll get the hell off here. I gotta get some food.